Hey Fat Friends, Kristen here. Have I found the best kayak camping kayak? Kayak camping kayak? Say that fast 3 times. For fat people? Well, I might have. Follow along and find out. So if you want to just skip to the part where I tell you which kayak I think is the best kayak camping kayak for fat people, just skip to this time right here. But if you want to hear about some other boats and hear about how I came to that determination and what came before it and what else I've tried, please follow along. Hey Fat Friends, Kristen here. Today I want to share with you a little bit about my journey in searching for a kayak and tell you where I've ended up with that journey. I've always been a heavy person. I'd lost a little weight. I was like, oh, I want a kayak. So I started that kayak journey with a feel-free lure 11.5 because I thought I wanted to fish. But I soon discovered that while I enjoy kayak fishing, my most favorite thing is kayak camping. And I could not make that feel-free lure 11.5 go forward down a river no matter how hard I tried. I was sideways all the time. But at the same time, we'd bought my husband a 13.5 lure and I tried it out and it went straight just fine. So the 13.5-foot lure became my favorite boat, my preferred boat for several years. I took that thing on many kayak camping adventures. It was a great quality boat. I can highly recommend it. My favorite features of that boat are the wheel in the keel. That made a large heavy boat more manageable for this large heavy girl. And the seat. The seat is the most comfortable kayak seat I've sit in out of all the kayaks I've tried. The one downside was that it was slow. And at the time I had a group of friends who mostly had sit inside kayak and I could not keep up with them. I would paddle, get to where they were, and then they'd be done taking the break and ready to leave. And I'm like, but wait, I just got here. So I went in search of a sit inside that would work for me. That led me to my next boat purchase, which was probably my most favorite boat to paddle. And that was my 14-foot Wilderness Pungo. Big Red was her name. Orange feel-free lure, her name was Orange Crush. Big Red was fast on the water, a little hard to turn because long boats can be kind of hard to turn. Enabled me to keep up with my friends. I started gaining some weight back, and once I got over 300 pounds, that boat, even though the capacity was 375, I think, it no longer fit me and my camping gear, which I had to learn the hard way by tipping over several times in the cold current river. It just didn't work anymore. So I was really excited when Wilderness announced they were doing a remake of the Pungo. They were making a 12.5-foot version that should hold 425 or 450 pounds. So I was like, oh, that's the answer. That'll be the one. So I saved my pennies and bought that boat and was nothing but disappointed. There were lots of issues with that boat. Could have been a lemon. It was the first run, and so part of me wonders if whatever was wrong with that boat was because the kinks hadn't been worked out yet. But, and a lot of people I know have those boats and like them very much. Later versions, but it had a hatch in the back and it leaked. And I spent one river trip being real grumpy when I had to empty out the hatch and dump it every time we would stop to take a break while all my friends had fun and I didn't. So, got to paddle for a second. Pungo did not do it for me. And the plastic was kind of flimsy, it felt like too. And when I would get in the boat, it would feel like the boat was warping to my shape. It just didn't feel like it was really made for the weight capacity that Wilderness had advertised. So on to the next boat. I still really wanted to sit inside, you know, so I scoured the world for a sit inside with a higher weight capacity and better quality, and landed on the Jackson Kilroy HD. And Jackson, when I'm researching high weight capacity boats, Jackson's usually not on the list. But this Kilroy HD, I think it clocked a capacity of 450. It was kind of a sit inside, but it was open. The hull was open, kind of like a canoe. It was a very good quality boat, very comfortable. So in the Kilroy, the seat was very comfortable. The boat was very good quality. It had lots of cool features, but it paddled like a sit on top. And with the open hull, it didn't have any flotation. And so one time on the river, I tipped just a little and I filled it up with water. And to me, at that moment, I realized if that ever happened on a lake or somewhere deeper than the river I was on, I would really be struggling. So that boat wasn't the one for me either. And it didn't meet the need of a sit inside. And I didn't find a big sit inside for me at that time. So I went back to the Feel Free lure, used it for a long time, eventually wore it out and bought another one somewhere around there. I also bought a Crescent crew. Crescent had come onto the scene. Their boats looked really pretty and really interesting, like their colors. So I went and checked them out. Their plastic feels a little different than like Wilderness or Jackson, a little more rigid and a little less bendy. So I was worried that that was a sign that they were kind of cheap or something, but I was wrong. So anyway, bought the crew mainly because I wanted my daughter, who's also big, to be able to paddle with me sometimes. So I needed another high capacity boat, and it is a tandem kayak with a seat position to be paddled as a solo kayak. And then also we have some kiddos in our family and that aren't big enough to kayak themselves, and so it would also be the family boat for the little kids, so they could paddle with a grown-up and join us on our adventures. But my daughter didn't paddle with me much, a few times, and we didn't take the kids out much, a few times. So the boat kind of sat mostly unused in my garage for a while. And then I killed the lure at the Devil's River. I came down a waterfall, landed on a rock, and started sinking. After I got off the rock, the boat started sinking. I discovered I had put a 10-inch crack in the bottom of the boat. Luckily, I was able to repair it and survive the river. I'll share that story with you someday. Not really in the market to buy a boat right then. I have these other boats sitting in the garage. I'll paddle that one. So that started my journey with the crew, and it has been my main boat for a couple years now. It's been the one I've taken on all the trips this year, most of the trips last year. Gotta paddle again. I'm trying to get somewhere where I won't get knocked over by a stump. This lake is full of stumps. So, oh, there's a stump. Get away from it. I'm talking about the sad demise of my second Feel Free lure and my how I ended up using the Crescent crew for my trips for a while. And I didn't think I could like anything better than my Feel Free lure after all the boats I had been through. Oh, I forgot to tell you, I did try something else. Somewhere between lure number 1 and lure number 2, yes, I tried a new canoe Pursuit. That was expensive and beautiful boat, and it was, I think, good quality, and it had lots of neat features unique from other kayaks. But one of the features that it had is the seat is on a track in the floor of the kayak. As I would try to paddle, no matter how hard I would tighten the nuts, bolts, nuts, whatever they're called, seat would scoot back. The boat was designed with scupper holes in the back, and as I would move from the right position in the boat further back, it would fill with water until the back of the boat would be totally full of water. And so I really struggled to ever make it work for me. And also the seat's really high. It's designed for fishing. So the seat was great, but it was really high. And when I'm on the river, I want to be as close to the bottom of the boat as possible. So, back to the crew. I ended up taking the crew out, and I want to tell you what I think about it now. So, it was not love at first sight, but she grew on me. Her name is Mellow Yellow, by the way. At first, I didn't like that she didn't have any hatches, nowhere to put my camping gear. Didn't think it was ideal for camping. But I found a solution for that. It's a very bare bones boat. It doesn't come with anything but scuppers and a seat and foot pegs. And initially, I really disliked the seat, and I still do. I found a way to make it a little more comfortable thanks to some YouTuber who suggested flipping the screws around, and that did help a little bit. But I just don't like the way the seat is attached to the boat, and the seat itself compared to is the worst seat out of any kayak. I'll just say that. Out of any of the ones I've owned and paddled, hands down the worst. So that was a bit of a deterrent from taking the boat out. But I also figured out a workaround for that. So it's getting kind of dark on me out here, and I didn't come prepared for night kayaking. So I'm going to paddle in, and we will carry on this conversation. So I made it back to shore. Hi, pup. Them's my shoes. Don't take them away. Are you going to pee on my truck? Damn it. Pros. The boat is very buoyant. I don't know what to say. Like, it feels like it says its capacity is 600 pounds, and I think it can handle 600 pounds. When I load it up with myself and all my camping gear, it still paddles well. The shape of the boat, the nose, bow, I think that's the bow, right? The bow is kind of bulbous, and it goes over, handles waves and rapids pretty well. The boat's wide, but not super flat on the bottom. So it's much more nimble than my feel-free lure was. It turns slightly easier. It's still hard to turn a big, long boat. It is 14 feet long, I believe. There's less boat in the water. It goes over shallow water easier than when you get to those places where the water is shallow and it's rocky. The crew gives me a little more ability to get through that than the lure did. Not a huge difference, but a noticeable difference. The boat, while it is basic as it comes, you can modify it to your heart's content. It has several places for track. You can get all the fun track gear to put on there and just do whatever you would like to with it. I feel loyal to the lure. I thought she was my ride or die, and that was going to be the one, and I just needed to make it best. So it breaks my heart just a little bit to admit this. It feels a little bit like cheating or being disloyal. But the crew, I think, is now my new ride or die. Yeah, it's just a little better. Not necessarily a better boat or a higher quality boat, and it depends on what your purpose is. But for my kayak camping expeditions, the crew is the one. But it should be known that I do bring a little part of the lure with me everywhere I go. I swapped out the crew seat for the lure seat until Crescent can come up with some better seat situation. This is what I'm doing. So even though I broke up with the lure, I didn't all the way break up with the lure. So to summarize, I've owned the 10.5 foot lure. I've owned 2 of the 13.5 foot lures. I own the 14-foot Pungo, Wilderness Pungo, which was my favorite. The 12.5 Wilderness Pungo, which I hated. The new canoe, which was beautiful. Forgot to even talk about the Old Town Loon. The Kilroy HD from Jackson, but the Crew is by far my favorite boat. I swapped out the seat for the feel-free seat. And I forgot to mention the foot pegs aren't great, but they're livable. Just buy extra because sometimes they fall off randomly. And that's my recommendation. The Crescent Crew is a great boat for fat people with a weight capacity of 600 pounds. And remember, the outdoors is for everybody. Sorry you're staring at my feet. Say hello to my astrals. Don't let anybody ever tell you making videos is not hard. Because it do be. So many efforts. Maximum effort.